So first up, we're gonna just go over our agenda. So we're gonna start with welcome and introductions from all of our panelists. We have 5 panelists today who are all 4th years at UCLA and will be graduating soon from Zoom. And after that, we'll have some questions for our panelists, and then we'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll have some audience questions, and then conclude with final thoughts.
Wait, that should say 12:10, right?
Yes. So here are our student panelists. We have Kathy Ngọc, Clara Do Jung-Wing, Hamilton Tran, Victor Tran, and Grace Yang. So we're going to start with Kathy, who will introduce herself first.
Hello, I'm Kathy. I'm studying communications. I'm a 4th year, and those are some of the organizations that I've been involved in. I come from Little Saigon, and my high school was 80% free reduced lunch, which means that relatively low income. And I can wholeheartedly say that I would not be here right now if it weren't for my community. The community is SEA Admit, as well as at my high school, there are a lot of people that came back to really lift us up and come in and be like, you have a feeling for it, you're going to apply to college. And they really took my hand and walked me through everything. And I know for a fact that I would not be here if it wasn't for that, because I would not have believed that I would have been able to. And those experiences have really guided me to where I am. And I think that I've committed myself towards lifting up my communities in whatever way possible, because I'm a product of my community. And so during my time here, I've been really involved with organizations that kind of help people see themselves as greater versions of themselves. I've done a lot of mentorship with middle schoolers, with women supporting each other. I've run 2 different after school programs, designing the curriculum and taking care of the kids with Bruins Club at GSK Elementary School and my current job at the UCLA Lab School. And I've been really lucky to find the Southeast Asian community and to have been able to find so much strength as a Vietnamese American. I've been involved with Vietnamese Culture Night as a scriptwriter and a producer and an actor, and I've really used that as a platform to process my experiences. And I think putting words to our unspoken experiences as Southeast Asians has really helped me find meaning and understanding in my life. So that's me. Nice to meet you.
Okay, so next up, we have one of these people that really captures people with her words and in public speaking, and I want to welcome Clara Do Jung-Wing.
Hi, everyone. So I am Clara, and thank you for that introduction, Amy. So I am actually a little bit different than Kathy. I'm also from Orange County, but I can count the amount of Vietnamese people on 3 fingers. We all have the same last name, Nguyen. At graduation, we were all we do is win, 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 no matter what. It was a joke, but also hilarious because I didn't really get to have the same support communities, even though I was adjacent to a lot of folks that looked like me. And so it wasn't really until SEA Admit when I got to come to campus and realize that there were other people that shared this collective memory, this collective understanding of how our parents raised us, or how we had certain experiences that were not the same as other Asian Americans, other East Asians, for example. So I felt very fortunate to have a space at UCLA in which I could choose to join the community. And that's not always a choice for everyone. And so I think coming here, I made a very intentional choice to learn more about my history, learn more about my heritage, so that I could reconnect with my parents. I, maybe like some of you, didn't have the best relationship with them growing up. I didn't feel like I understood them, and I was like, they don't understand me. But I think as I learned more about where we came from and what we shared, I really got to find myself more as well. And at UCLA, as you can see, I kind of made my way around all the organizations, ranging from being an RA, where you might live, they will kind of be your new mom and dad, perhaps, when you come here, to working with underserved populations, such as those experiencing homelessness, youth that are at risk of not being able to go into higher education, nonprofit groups, and other Southeast Asian spaces, such as SEA Admit, But I would say what became most important to me and what I realized a lot at SEA Admit was how much mental health meant to me. I had very cool opportunities to work with people that got to center health and well-being. And now that I'm leaving UCLA, that's a really big value that I have. And I think college in general kind of teaches you that it's okay to think about who you are and not just who you want to be. And I'm very grateful also for this panel to be able to kind of reflect back on my experiences since my very first SEA Admit as well. Because my first time as staff, or not my first time, but one of my times as staff, I got to be on the student panel as well. And I think that allowing people the energy and the time to just talk and be who they want to be and who they are is really special. So really grateful to everyone else on the panel as well. Welcome.
Thank you, Clara. And this next person, he's like a little annoying sometimes, but like, I guess he's like really cool and like really nice, and he's an engineer, but let's welcome Hamilton Tran.
Oh, what? You're talking about me? uh, all right. Hello, my name is Hamilton Tran, fourth year civil and environmental engineering major. I'm from Orange County as well. I'm Vietnamese. Basically, my whole life I've been surrounded by things Vietnamese. I joined a Vietnamese American Boy Scout troop. So I was really surrounded in that, in my culture, but then going to SEA Admit, I actually learned what it means to be Southeast Asian and the difference from just being Asian. And so that made me really get more in touch with my culture and just learn about the community and the reasons why we need to be strong together, especially during like times like this. So that led me joining VSU. I did VCN my first year, and that was probably one of my favorite things I've ever done. And so I got a dance for VCN, and then lately I tried out acapella, which was really cool. And then the other organizations I ended up doing was Ultimate Frisbee, really fun thing to keep me active. And then Bruin Entrepreneurs and American Society of Civil Engineers. There I did a couple projects, steel bridge team, environmental design team, and a timber design team. And for those, it's like a lot of very engineering focused things where we build things against other schools and then move on to like competitions and whatnot. And then I also did Engineers Without Borders. And that's an organization where we actually go to a family in Navajo in Arizona, and we build them a water system. So yeah, my time at UCLA has been a lot about my culture with VSU, but then a lot of focus on my career and a lot of my engineering things. Yeah.
Thanks, Hamilton. This next person is like best buds with our Chancellor Gene Block. Like he like travels with him. He like goes to his house sometimes. And yeah, let's welcome Victor Tran.
Okay. Oh my God, thank you. So hi everyone. So my name is Victor Tran, and I'm a fourth year student here. My majoring in sociology and geography, and I'm a minor in urban and regional studies. So like our other panelists, some of our panels, I grew up in Orange County as well, I think, and I was fully I guess like also in like Little Saigon, but for me like being immersed in like being here, I felt like I really didn't get a chance to explore my culture, ironically enough, because it was always around me. So it was so pervasive to the point where I didn't really felt the need to like really explore it. So it wasn't until I came to UCLA that I had the opportunity to really explore my community and really embrace my identity. I unfortunately didn't go to SEA Admit because I don't know why I didn't. I guess I didn't see the importance of it back in the day, but I think like coming to UCLA and becoming more involved in Southeast Asian spaces such as VSU and other programs really taught me like the understanding of community and the experiences that we have and how valid and important they are for us to share that with each other and for our community back home as well. So so I've been involved in a lot of the programs that we put on for educational purposes, and really love giving back, because I think like at my time at UCLA, I realized that, you know, we have the privilege of being here at this institution, and that it's really important for us to recognize what that means for us in our community, and that giving back is something that we should really uphold as we continue our time here. So my kind of, I'm involved in a lot of service and like volunteering here on campus, and my organizations range from like Student Wellness Commission, where we advocate for student health on campus, or and to other outreach projects where we work with different communities across the country to really do community development and work with community partners as well. I think for me, like my kind of my passions for career and what I've done at UCLA is really in community planning and development. So whether it's working with communities to develop equitably, or to really highlight how it's about the resources that community has. When you want to come in and help them, you should work with them and not against them or for them. So I think like that's definitely something I am really passionate about at UCLA, is just really working around how can we fight systemic barriers and reduce socioeconomic inequalities, and really mobilize our communities to be able to have a better future, especially in these times. And let's see, other things at UCLA, I guess I'm somewhat athletic. I don't know. I do like running sometimes, and I've recently, I know in the past 2 years, I've gotten involved with the adaptive program at UCLA. So that's been a really cool way for me to really get involved in a different community and really learn different perspectives on campus. So been pretty busy, but I think it's really, I don't know. I think like at UCLA, we definitely have the opportunities to do whatever you want, whether it's, you know, education or it's something in your career or for your community. So I don't know. I've been busy, but I've been really fortunate to have the spaces that are given to me, and I'm very excited have been a part of it. Although it's all ending, you know, like this quarter. But you know, hey, I had a good time. So yeah.
Thanks, Victor. And like, if you're ever on campus, you literally see him at every event, and I don't know how he does it. Like, he does so much. Okay, and I'm gonna introduce our last panelist. And this last panelist is kind of the heart of the Hmong community at UCLA, because she like has the biggest heart like that I know. Like, she's the sweetest person ever. And I want to welcome my co-chair, Grace Yang.
Oh, thank you for the introduction, Amy. So hi everyone, my name is Grace, and I'm a co-chair alongside Amy and Lyndon for this year's SEA Admit Weekend. I'm a fourth year human biology and society major, and so this year I am the president of the Association of Hmong Students, just kind of like representing my culture out here at UCLA. I'm also part of the Southeast Asian Campus Learning, Education, and Retention Project, also known as Sea Clear, as a mentor. I also help kind of with the workshops sometimes. And then I was also the family head coordinator of our conference, Southeast Asian Students for Organizing, as well as I've been a part of the Asian Pacific Coalition and the United Khmer students. So I've always really like embraced my culture, and I guess like it just came out of me more when I came to UCLA, and I kind of just thought that because not a lot of people knew about Hmong people, that I should kind of, you know, be that person and like provide the space for people to learn more. But outside of kind of like all the SEA organizations, I've also done a lot of research because I am pre-med. So my first 2 years, I did research in a wet lab, and I found out that I didn't like it that much. Not that like wet lab research is bad or anything, because like it's a really good thing, but it was just not for me because it was like not very personal, and I felt like I couldn't really get to know people very well. And so these past 2 years, in my third and fourth years, I've done a research internship. So I really do enjoy research. And I think that's something that, you know, if anyone is pre-med, or even if you're not pre-med, I feel like research is a great way to kind of just learn more about the field you're going into. I also do dance sometimes. So for the United Khmer students, I participated in their culture night. I also danced with foundations. And overall, I just feel like UCLA has a lot of great opportunities, and like any interest of yours that you want to develop further, UCLA is a perfect place for that.
Thank you, Grace. Great. Thank you all for your introductions. We're going to jump into our main question section for this panel. And the first question is, the transition from high school to college can be a very nerve-wracking and filled with uncertainty for many people. So what are some ways that you adjusted to your new life when you first got to college, and what kept you motivated throughout college? And anybody can answer first, whoever wants to answer first.
I can start off. So adjusting to UCLA, I feel like one of the best things that I did was go to SEA Admit. So I attended SEA Admit, and through there I was able to start building my connections. My SEA Admit dad was Hmong, and so he introduced me to the Association of Hmong Students. I also met a lot of people from Clear at SEA Admit, and so they got me connected with a peer counselor, who helped like me understand more about how UCLA was, adjusting to the quarter system, as well as encouraging me to go to office hours and ask any questions in my classes as soon as I can so I don't fall behind. And so I definitely feel that having a mentor, having a community there for support really did help ease my transition my first year into college.
Go next. So I was notorious in high school for being super loud and extroverted, but when I came to college, that became so much more difficult because I realized that I didn't stick with all the people that I'd known like since elementary school, basically. So I think for me, I really loved going to the enormous activities fair. So you all will find this out if you choose to come to UCLA, but it's like a club rush like you had in high school, but like 100 times bigger and more overwhelming and with more free stuff. So I got to go there and just stop by like every table. And some of the cool parts was just seeing people really passionate about what they do. And a lot of us mentioned different organizations, and I'm sure you have no idea what those words mean, but they also don't expect you to know those things. So there were groups based on healthcare, based on dance, environment, whatever you wanted to get involved in. You got to pick up a flyer, and I remember going back to my dorm and just like looking at everything and seeing a bunch of wide open doors. And then I think that it wasn't really easy right away to make friends, but a trick that I tried to do was just try to make one friend at every single thing I did and to make myself go to at least one thing every day. Because once you make one friend, things just become a lot more manageable. And sometimes the people will not pan out, but sometimes they will. And it just makes going to class, it makes going to do like sports or going to do activities a lot better. So it's not about making a ton of friends. It's just about making one who might stick or who might not, but then introduce you to another. So that's kind of what helped me start off. And in terms of keeping motivated, I was really motivated to improve my mental health and to show my parents that choosing UCLA was the right choice. That wasn't their first choice for me when I first came here. And I think it later transformed into wanting to be a really good doctor. Like Grace, I'm also pre-med. And then eventually that motivation turned into just try to be like the best version of me as I can, as cheesy as that sounds, because I think you'll hit a moment when you realize that you really do this stuff for yourself and not for anyone else. So that has helped me continue and hopefully graduate the end of this quarter.
I can go next. I think sorry. Yeah, like for me, I think like I was pretty extroverted, like pretty wild in high school, I guess. I don't know. But like coming to UCLA, it was just like, you know, a shock of like, you know, being so small in such a large campus. And I think for me, like it was really important for me to be social, to really engage myself with others, and to, you know, like it was like it's a difficult transition, but I think like I had to realize that, you know, I'm not alone in that, and that a lot of us do share that experience. So being getting involved and just like coming out to like the first meetings of like various organizations, and like, you know, just talking to people really felt maybe more comfortable, and it was just like a fun thing, you know, outside of school that was just like, you know, transitioning that as well. I think like being social and being active in the community and just like trying to put myself out there really kind of adjusted me. Also, another fun fact, my sister also went to UCLA, and she's a year older, and she was actually my RA my first year. So like it was kind of funny and weird, but I mean that's kind of helped in a way, because I mean, I don't know, she just gave you all the tea on like UCLA and stuff. So that was like, it was really nice to have that personal connection to UCLA. I think another thing, like for just being out there but being motivated, I think I came to the realization it's just like, you know, I don't have to be like, I don't want to say perfect, but like, you know, like things aren't going to turn out the way that they are. And I think as much as you plan, you know, your first quarter or like what you want to do like during welcome weeks and that kind of stuff, like it's never going to, you know, always be what you want it to be. And I think like early in my career, I was just like, yeah, you know, like it's, you know, it's not what is planned out, but it's just like what I can do in the moment. And so I think being flexible and open-minded really helped me combine that with being motivated, because I think like because of that I took every small like, you know, chance and opportunity I got, and I really saw that as like, you know, small incremental steps for me being like, you know, growing as an individual and learning more. So that definitely like, you know, might not have led me to grand places, but it definitely like was something that still motivated me, just knowing that, you know, like no matter what I do at the school, like it was still a learning opportunity, and that it was an opportunity for me to meet new people, and that's what mattered the most to me. It was just like, you know, making community and really having a good time. And I think like a lot of us, you know, it's kind of overwhelming sometimes being at this campus because it is so big, and you do run into so many people, and you can end up having so many commitments. But I think if you kind of like, you know, simplify it and just really like see it as a whole, just, you know that it's a trial and error, and that you're gonna. So I think that's definitely helped me with what I've done so far. So.
Thank you, Victor. That was really well said.
I can go next. For me, and I think for a lot of people, adjusting was really a lot harder than I expected it to be. I didn't expect to have such intense imposter syndrome. I felt like I barely scraped it in, like I barely made it, like I was a mistake, which is ridiculous looking back, because like I deserve to be here, and I don't know why I got in my head so much. And one thing about UCLA that's like I didn't expect was you have to apply to everything, even the organizations where they take everyone. There's still like a formal application process, and I think my first few quarters, like I didn't do much, and it was because I didn't feel like good enough to apply to anything, and I was really afraid of rejection. So even the orgs that accepted everyone, I was like, I don't want to be rejected. I'm not good enough. Like everyone is so much smarter than me, so much more capable than I thought I was, and that was complete bull. I'm telling you right now, that's like you have to really contribute, and I wish that I would have like realized that sooner. And I really had to learn the hard way that I'm a lot more capable and a lot smarter than I let myself believe. And I think like once I was able to recognize my worth, it became a lot easier to find my place. And one thing that kept me motivated throughout college was I just felt a lot of purpose in everything that I was doing. I think in high school, a lot of the organizations that I was a part of, it was more kind of like stepping stones to get to college, like things to put on my application. And I think that a lot of the work that we were doing were kind of, it was kind of just doing things for the sake of doing things. But in a lot of the organizations, and all of the organizations that I've been lucky enough to be a part of during my time here, I felt like there was such a strong purpose and passion behind everything that we were doing. Like I mentioned that I've done a lot of work with education and working with children, and it's not just like me coming in being like, what's up, guys? I know that like with these after school programs, I'm able to provide service to my communities because their parents would not have been able to take care of them. And that in itself is really important. And I know that like the conversations that I'm having with them and like the fun that we're having, even like I'm learning a lot from it, but it's doing a lot for my community as well. And there's so much importance there. And like with programs like this, like SEA Admit, it's really easy for me to commit myself and feel motivated because I know that it's a lot bigger than me. And I just recognize how important it is for our community and the power that it holds. And that makes it a lot easier for me to be motivated. And as well as when it comes to academics, I study communications, which is I understand it as how people understand each other, whether it's like through words, through interpersonal communication, through computer technology. But I think it's so incredible and it's so applicable to everyday life. And so I think just finding that personal connection in everything I do allows me to stay really motivated with handling everything. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Hamilton, would you like to add on to anything that they said? Or
Yeah,
have your own answer?
Yeah, so like what Grace said about joining SEA Admit that was like my first time I got a taste of college. I remember getting food at like 11 p.m. at night, and I thought that was like the coolest thing where you can just swipe your card and get like a burrito. So just keeping myself motivated and transitioning, I like made sure to keep in touch with my old friends, and just being on my own for this long for my first time like in my life. Like it was very nerve-wracking at first, but just having some friends that I could trust really helped out. I had a lot of high school friends that ended up coming to UCLA with me, so we stuck together and like learned together. And then like Clara said, like I made sure that I found a lot of friends at UCLA, like new friends, and I trusted them a lot. So they were there with me during my first quarter for anything that I needed whenever I had problems or any issues. And I gotta say, like, I did get really distracted my first quarter, just getting involved in like all the orgs and like trying all these different things. But I always went back to remembering like, why did I come to UCLA? I came here to get an education, and that always put me back on the right track. And it took a long time for me to really adjust to the new college life, but I went to a lot of office hours, so I talked to my professors all the time for help in school. I always try to meet one kid in the class so that they can always help me in case like I don't know what's going on. And I'd always try to find someone that's much smarter than me, so that was really helpful. And then joining organizations that pertain to something that you want to do in the future helped out a lot too, whether or not it's like culture or school. So like I joined an engineering club, and those kids always seem to be doing well in their lives in terms of their career and just in academics. So it really pushed me and like put me on the right path. And I always just remember that like, all right, if I got into UCLA just like them, then I could be just as successful as they are. If not, I can at least try to be as successful. And that always put me in the right path and kept me motivated. And yeah.
Great, thank you. Does anybody else want to add to this question? If not, we will be moving on. So the next question is, how has your Southeast Asian identity played a part in your time at UCLA? Because this is Southeast Asian Admit Weekend, and a lot of students like don't know what it means to be Southeast Asian at an institution like UCLA, especially when I came in, I was like, what is SEA Admit Weekend? Like, why is it specifically Southeast Asian? So can you give some insight on how this identity like plays a part in your life at UCLA?
I can go again. Yeah, so like I said when in the intro, I'm Vietnamese American. And in Orange County, there's a lot of Vietnamese American people. So I never really realized that being Southeast Asian that means you're a minority within a minority of Asians. I didn't really understand that I'm very different from people from Korea or like Japan or China. And that my community faced a lot of adversities that other Asian American communities did not face, just because we came here a long time after than other ethnicities. So SEA Admit really taught me a lot of that, and it made me really proud of my culture. And then I joined a lot of the, the cultural aspects, like doing VCN, which is Vietnamese Culture Night. I got to learn a lot more about just like being Vietnamese, and then being Southeast Asian. It taught me a lot about the things that our community faces. And I actually got to join a big community and met a lot of different people, learned a lot about just Southeast Asia in general and other countries. And it made me really proud to be Asian. So especially nowadays when we have a lot of Asian American representation in the media, every time I see that, I just get really, really proud, and I feel like a lot more solidarity with everyone. And it was great to have all of these resources that are for Southeast Asian students that help me in academics and just meeting other people.
Thank you, Hamilton.
So as I mentioned earlier, I grew up around like a lot of Vietnamese people, and I never really understood what it meant to be Vietnamese or what it meant to be Southeast Asian. And I think that I didn't really begin to understand that until around my second or third year. Coming into college, my first year, all of my friends were like Chinese Americans. And I was, like, we're all Asian, it's all the same. But it wasn't. Part of it was their immigration backgrounds were different. Like Hamilton mentioned, their parents came here like earlier or for different reasons, and they didn't have the same history of war that Southeast Asians share. And so like, because they didn't have that same history of war, they weren't traumatized in the same way that I was. And like our socioeconomic backgrounds are different. And although like income isn't necessarily monolithic throughout the Southeast Asian community, there is a very clear difference. And so there was like a lot of ways where I felt like I had to explain myself and they didn't understand. And so like a very simple thing is like when it came to money, I didn't realize like the difference. All of my friends were Asian, and like all of my friends like back home were Asian as well, but there was such like a difference in experiences. It was things like, let's get appetizers and then split the bill 4 ways. Like what? And like always wanting to, and like differences in experiences, like, oh, like you haven't gone to Europe to vacation, like you haven't gone to China, like you don't know what these things are. And it's like, no, my parents are afraid, or like my family, like it's like different, like going back to like our motherland versus like their motherland. And so that was like coming into UCLA, I realized that there was a difference in being like Asian American and being like Southeast Asian, because our experiences are different and our histories are different. And I think like as I realized that, I felt a lot more power in my Southeast Asian identity. I think it was like at first I felt very like small with it, because coming into UCLA, I felt small already, but then I didn't really see people like me. And if there even though like UCLA is like 30% Asian, there's still like everywhere, like you kind of just see like white people in USAC, which is our student government. When I came in, it was like all white people or like East Asians, like people that like Koreans or like Chinese that had been, their histories were just very different. And I have a friend right now, her name's Emily. She's running for internal vice president in USAC, and she described, like, she mentioned that a big reason that she's running is that when she came into UCLA, she felt small, like she didn't belong here. And I think that I relate to that so strongly. And when I would be in certain environments, like interviews or like networking events, I felt like people wouldn't take me seriously because, like I'm a small little Asian girl, or that like my background as a Southeast Asian was too niche and not relatable, and therefore not valuable outside of the Southeast Asian community. This is a beautiful space that we have, but outside of it, I felt like that was the case. And I think that like this is always at the back of my head, and it was always something that I felt like I had to consider. But I think in the past few years, I've really come to find strength in it, because I realized that like our community is rooted in resilience, and that is something that I carry with me, and that is something that I should be proud of, and that is something that defines me. So that's how my Southeast Asian identity has played a part in my time here.
Thank you, Kathy. That was very beautifully said. And like, I guess another question that we can tag on to this question is like, how has it like how has it played into your struggles, and how have you like overcame them? I definitely think that being like identifying as like an Asian woman like really like does have effects on you and how you're seen by the rest of society. So if anybody else wants to like also talk about that in this question, feel free to.
I can talk about it a little. Just answering the broader question. I think like overall, coming from like a bubble where I really didn't really understand or really considered like the difference or kind of the value. I didn't really think I was special by being Vietnamese or anything like that, or if that was something to be, somewhat wholeheartedly proud of. I think it was just something I kind of grew up with. But I think like when you come to UCLA, you're confronted with difference, and I think that's kind of what kind of like makes you reevaluate your positionality and your kind of identity and how that matters in the context of UCLA. And I think for me, like as Kathy mentioned about like different experiences, I think like whether it's like in the classroom or in your social groups, you understand that I have a different upbringing or a different experience and a different perspective on these issues because of my particular identity. I think it was important for me to value that, and that it was just that it has shaped who I am, and that thus it will probably shape my experiences at UCLA as well. So I think like being confronted with that like in classes, it was interesting to just see how like my identity played such a big role in like how I thought about different ideas and different people and how different people would see me. And so like that kind of was that. I think the whole, was it the challenges? Is that the second question? Sorry, Amy.
Yeah, like challenges or struggles that you had to face as a Southeast Asian American.
I think like, yeah, I think when it comes to spaces that didn't seem like they were particularly for me or just like exclusionary, I think like a lot of times like I think is like an intersectional experience where we have to consider like multiple like identity points in my background. So being like Southeast Asian and being from a low income background, being queer and everything. So it's just like that whole, all these like different identities kind of gave me like a particular experience. And sometimes like even though like UCLA does say it values diversity so much, and that the fact that it is important to their mission, I think a lot of the times there are just things that inherently are not so great, and they can be exclusionary or just inherently like bad in nature. And I think it was important for me to really like sometimes like express my concerns that hey, like I think this could be improved upon, or to really to call on my administrators. Like I've worked with some of the administrators and I think like they value student input, but it was important for me to really hear from other people and how their experiences and identities played out. And I was fortunate enough to really have spaces where I could share it to others, and hey, like I'm like like this is as Southeast Asian, like this is what I think, or like this is what I feel about campus. And so I think like it was just like that feeling of being confronted with difference where like we all aren't going to experience the same systems or the same organizations in the same way. And I think like it's been impactful for me to be involved with the Southeast Asian community here at UCLA, and the fact that we are able to really recognize how UCLA wasn't built for people of color or people like us, and how important it was for us to really have that resilience and like coming up with ways for us to bond and really like call on the administration and our systems to really provide better resources for us. So I think it's been challenging, but I mean it's been amazing to have the historical legacy that past Southeast Asians on campus have worked upon. So it's definitely something that I was so proud to be a part of, coming to UCLA, like being in SEA Admit. Like I learned all of this and I was like, dang, like all these years like people have been working so hard, but there's always more work to be done. And I think that that's kind of like what my identity has played to my work at UCLA. It's just like I will continue being involved because I think like it's so valuable and important that we continue passing on this legacy to future generations who are involved in SEA Admit, that it's really impactful for people at UCLA. So
yeah, and I think it's also important to note that UCLA in and of itself is like a bubble, and there are a lot of like-minded people, and we are privileged to like go to school in such a diverse campus. And a lot of things we learn here can impact us. And I think a lot of us in this community also want to bring it out, because when we leave campus, the world is so much different. And I feel like UCLA really tries to empower us to take these steps outside of our campus so that we can create change. Would Clara or Grace like to say anything?
Sure. So I do want to bring back what Kathy said about the difference between being Asian and Southeast Asian. Because a lot of people, when you think of Asian, they think of like East Asians, so Chinese, Japanese, people who have historically been able to like do good in college and like obtain a higher education, versus people like us who are Southeast Asian. Um, and not a lot of Southeast Asian students have been able to go to college or get a degree. And so I think it's important to make that distinction. And also that's, I believe, like one of the reasons why we push so hard to have a Southeast Asian admit weekend, to encourage like all our admits, whether or not they choose UCLA, that they understand that it is important, that if they are interested in higher education and that they want to go into higher education, that that's a path that they can go on, compared to like my parents' generation or like my grandparents' generation, where it wasn't an option for them. But now, like with us, it's more accessible. And so, like, no matter which college or like whatever path someone chooses to go on, like, if higher education is for you, we highly encourage, like, at SEA Admit, for students to pursue that. And then for myself, I've always been proud of knowing that I am Hmong American, but I guess it didn't really hit me until I came to UCLA how, I guess, like how little people know about Hmong people. Because at UCLA there's about like 15 Hmong students, me being one of them. And then back home in Sacramento, I grew up around like a highly like concentrated Hmong community. And so like, I never had to explain my identity or who I was or my culture to people around me because they knew. And then coming to UCLA, it was really hard. And it was like kind of a culture shock to me because once like people would ask me like, hey, like what ethnicity are you? And I would say, hey, I'm Hmong. And they would ask, hey, is that like Mongolian? And me having to explain that it's not Mongolian, and like Hmong people are different, and we are Southeast Asians as well. So me having to relearn my own identity to explain it to other people has been a really big part of I guess like my identity here at UCLA, because I had to kind of grow into my own person and like learn that that's not just like who I am, but that's the kind of like what supplements my identity, my background and things like that. And also just like knowing enough to share with other people. That's also been a big part. And then just learning about like other cultures as well, and not being like in my own little bubble and only knowing about like my own culture. UCLA has really helped me understand more about other cultures, um, especially like other Southeast Asian cultures, and how we can build each other up in our community, versus like focusing on these differences. I feel like that's been a really big part of my 4 years at UCLA.
Thank you, Grace. And last but not least, Clara.
So I definitely agree with all of my fellow panelists in terms of a lot of these experiences that we had at UCLA. And I wanted to kind of frame my piece on resilience, which has really shaped everything I've done individually and in a community sense as well. I even got to give a TEDx UCLA talk on what resilience meant to me. So I'm constantly thinking about what even the word means. And being Southeast Asian has really meant resilience because it has been a fight even before since I was born. And many of us have talked about the conflict in Southeast Asia. A lot of people call it the Vietnam War, because our parents were fighting for freedom or fighting for even the ability to achieve. And I think about that a lot because when we're constantly fighting, sometimes we don't even get a chance to look back on who we have become or why we are the way we are. And so it was funny because at UCLA and in a lot of my groups, I became known as the Asian American Studies girl because I got the chance to double major in Asian Am as well. And so people were constantly telling me like, oh my gosh, I took my first Asian Am class. My mind is blown. I've finally like seen myself represented in my history books or in literature and things like that. And I also had to carry that weight of like, yes, you've learned this thing about it. So like, let's keep going with it. Like, how do we keep showing this fight outside of our comfort zone too? And being Southeast Asian is a thing, even more importantly, outside of Southeast Asian spaces. A lot of us have talked about SEA Admit or VST or VCN and how we got to like really be around people that understood us. But I guess something that I've realized is that being resilient in that is also putting up a fight to administration, like Victor said, showing it to other people that need to see what being a Southeast Asian really means or what these intersectional things mean. Because like Amy said earlier, being a woman and being Southeast Asian and being from a low income background or being from somewhere that was predominantly white meant that I had to continue to fight to show what my community meant. And after 4 years, I kind of synthesize all of that resilience in terms of power, because our whole country is built on power, and there's a different weight to community power. And I sometimes feel this really big burden and responsibility to show like medical schools that I'm applying to right now that you can't commodify culture, which happens a lot. And sometimes we even do it like at our culture nights, like we commodify and make it into a show, and that's not always bad. But it also means that we have to show other aspects, sometimes like the really difficult parts too, talking about things that have shaped us that we might not even be proud of. And I think that I remember that it's not just about me when I think about that weight too, that I have a lot of colleagues and peers and family that show me that resilience isn't just about one person, it's about all the people that lift us up too. And that empowers and inspires me a lot, even just listening to a lot of the people on this panel that I've known for many years, like just talk about how we're all trying to fight the same fight and we're doing it together. So I think being Southeast Asian for me means that my struggles are shared, but at the same time, they're my own. So I'm allowed to have them and allowed to talk about them. And I think that moving forward into graduation, into what being Southeast Asian means in the real world, like Amy encouraged us to think about, is really scary. But knowing that we've gotten some practice at UCLA to talk to people like us and also talk to people not like us, like helps us continue to be like, yes, we're here, we're visible, and we continue to need our resources and to need our visibility as well.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to move on to our last question, which is something I pulled from, which is something that one of the admits asked during one of our workshops. So I thought it'd be applicable to you all. So what is something you wish you knew coming into UCLA, or like some advice you would give to yourself who's coming into UCLA like 4 years ago?
I'm gonna go first. One thing I always tell anyone that's going into college with this, and even first years that are like going through college, it's like no one talks about like how it's really easy to make friends, but it's hard to make good friends. And like you're gonna go through that. Like you're gonna go through that. And you're going to come in and you're going to see in the first week, everyone's going to post on their Instagram, like, UCLA, best friends, friends for life. And you're like, what is 1 week? How did that happen? And you're going to feel like the odd one out, or you might meet people that are really cool and get along with, but you don't feel at home and you don't feel safe with them. But you're not going to be able to admit that because everyone else seems like they're best friends already. And I just want you to know that, like, you're going to go through that. It's not a matter of, like, if you'll go through that, like, you will, because that's just the nature of, like, transition and going into college. And that's normal and that's okay. And if you come in trying to change yourself to fit what you think other people want, then you're going to attract those people that are coming to you for that reason. But if you come in as your authentic self, then you're going to attract people that love you for you. And that's, like, one thing that I learned the hard way, and that I always preach to people that are going through this transition, because I think it makes it so much easier to accept this transition when you're taking it for what it is, rather than, like, what it you think it should be. And then another thing that I really wish I knew, and I talked about this earlier, is that, like, I belong here. I belong here, I deserve to be here, and I am making a difference being here. It took me so long to realize that. It took me, like, up until, like, no, it wasn't until this year that I was like, I can wholeheartedly say that, like, leaving this institution, I've made it a better place. And it's different because I'm here, and I was not here by accident. And if I was here by accident, then, like, so what? So what if they actually admitted me? Like, I'm here and I'm going to make a difference. And they're lucky to have me. And I just keep on repeating those words in my head until, like, I really believe it. And even if, like, you don't believe it yourself, I hope you know that, like, the people around you know that about you, and the people around you believe in you. So that's one thing that I really wish I knew, but I'm going to hold with me going forward into all the other spaces that I go into.
Just going off of what, sorry, do you want to go? Okay, so I'll make it quick. So I think, like, earlier, Kathy mentioned, like, the idea of just, like, not being good enough, or that, you know, being qualified of being here at the institution. And I think, like, for me, like, for, like, 3 years, I always was, like, gonna sell myself short, like, in all my classes. Like, I would do the bare minimum and I would be, you know, great at it. And but I would be so afraid of, like, going further and just, like, seeking out those, you know, opportunities, or, like, going to Professor Osauer and asking for, like, opportunities in research and that kind of stuff. And I feel like I wish I knew that coming in, that, you know, that it's, even if I, you know, I am capable, I am capable of being here, and even if I'm not, and that, you know, it's still a learning experience, and that, like, you know, that's why you're here, is that you have these opportunities that are for you, and they're learning experiences. You know, you don't have to be accomplished coming in just to have these experiences. So I think, like, hopefully, like, you know, if I'd known that, I would have been more motivated to really, like, branch out and really try new things that I think, you know, would have been beneficial for me. But I think I was too afraid to, like, take a chance on. Another quick thing is just, like, at UCLA, like, I wish I knew more about, you know, just the personal agency that we all have on, like, crafting our own, like, career and, like, our pathway. I think a lot of times, like, I don't know, like, I felt like it's just, like, you know, you have all these things that you are required to do at school, but outside of that, you know, it's really up to you to decide what you want to do and what you want to get involved in. And it's that, like, personal agency that you have in that community, and, like, what you do, is that it's really important, that shapes who you are. So I think, like, hopefully most of, you know, if all the admins who are coming to UCLA or any institution of higher education, and hopefully you believe in yourself, and you know that you have this personal agency to really shape, you know, yourself and your future, and that, you know, that can have a powerful impact on you and the people around you. So, you know, just believe in yourself and just go for it, because, you know, I think it's not what you can't do, it's what you can do. And I think, like, you should just go for it and just do what you can, and I think it'll be fine, because, you know, at the end of the day, it's still a learning experience, no matter, you know, what happens. And I think, like, that's just, you know, it's a transitional phase in your lives where you're just learning, and it's okay to fail and everything. So just, like, go for it. No.
Thank you, Victor. You get snaps too.
Okay, I can go now. So I do not want to sound like a broken record, but the thing that I wish I knew since coming to UCLA is that my own health, in all aspects of the word, physical, mental, emotional, is the number one thing. Like, nothing else matters. And when I say that, it means that when you think back and you're at the end of all this like me, I'm not going to think about the grade that I got my very first quarter at UCLA. So you must take care of yourself. There is no one else that has the responsibility to do that other than you. And you really have to advocate for yourself. And you might hear that word a lot when you come here, but it's true. Like, you cannot be taken care of or helped unless you ask for it. And people will say that like UCLA is this big institution that doesn't help you, but that's not true. The thing that you really need to know is that you have to ask for it. You have to tell your friends like, hey, everything sucks right now. Can you please be there for me? You can't expect your parents or your siblings or your friends that you've known forever to know that. And when I say that, that means that you have to ask for help. You have to go to sleep. Like, there is no sort of Olympics where people are like, yeah, I only lasted on 3 hours of sleep. Like, I'm the best. Like, I don't care. I'm going to get my 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. And you should try to do that too. And go to the doctor if you're sick. Like, no one wants to get sick. And like, especially right now, maybe you'll learn to wash your hands and do all those things. But seriously, go to sleep. Go to the doctor if you're sick. And lastly, stay in your own lane. This is something that gets preached a lot, but you seriously are running a marathon and you can't look at how fast or how slow other people are going. You really just have to do your own thing and keep on that track, because at the end of the day, you gotta stay healthy and finish this out. So, you know, I know, we know that social media is a bunch of lies, that UCLA can be full of a bunch of lies too. And that doesn't mean it's bad, because we all need to like fake it till we make it sometimes. But you just have to realize that sometimes shutting those things off and being like, the only person I care about is me right now, that you can find the things that make you happy, the things that find you joyful. When you're an old person like me, you'll start to think about, wow, what were the things that really brought me joy at UCLA? And I can guarantee you, it was never really about the things that I stressed out about. So yes, all of those things, but mostly sleep and practice safe things. You'll understand that more when you go to college, but I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Clara. Okay.
I'll go next. The thing I wish I knew was that I didn't need a ton of friends. Something that my middle school teacher told me was you should be able to count your friends on one hand. And I always thought he was crazy for that, because I was like, no, I have like 100 friends, or like I have like 500 now on Facebook. Yeah, coming to college, I definitely realized that the people that I would really consider my friends that would be there for me through anything, I could count on one hand. And I wish I knew that coming into UCLA, so I didn't have to really like devote a lot of time to people that wouldn't devote as much time back into me. So I just really wanted to strengthen the connections I already had with a very small amount of people that I know will be there for the rest of my life.
Thanks, Sam.
No problem, Amy.
So what I want to add, something I wish I knew coming to UCLA, is to not be afraid of change and not be afraid of making change. Because like growing up, I was very introverted, and I would still say that I'm an introvert today. But one of the things that really upset me, or like kind of just like made me not as comfortable at UCLA, was like some things I just didn't like. Like, I didn't like how some things are run. And UCLA, like Clara said, it's not that necessarily UCLA is not here to help sometimes. It's just that you have to advocate for it. And so it's okay to like say that you don't like some things. And it's okay to like push forward for changes that you want to make. And so there's a lot of like new referendums and like lots of new like policies that have been popping up these 4 years I've been here at UCLA. And it's coming from like all the students. all the students kind of like don't like how some of administration doesn't give like enough support or like other things, and students kind of just band together and be like, okay, so we see the problem, what do we want to change? And I've never been like a part of something like that because, you know, in high school, it's just kind of like, okay, you know, the teachers and principals and admin, like whatever they say is the law. But here at UCLA, you have a lot more freedom. You have a lot more, you have a bigger voice together as a student body. And so I feel that I've been so much encouraged more to make changes here at UCLA, both for myself. Like as a student, I've kind of like reinvented myself a little bit and being more confident, and just like putting myself out there more, something I didn't do in high school. But it's also just like be the change that you want to make in the world. And I know that's a very big statement, but it's also true. Like if you don't like push for those changes that you want, it's never going to change. And so that's just what I wanted to say. Like, don't be afraid, or don't be like discouraged to make those changes, because like if you see something wrong, then like there's probably other people that see something wrong with the same thing. And to just like voice your opinions, and don't be afraid to just be like, oh, it's bad, but like I don't want to say anything, because like maybe other people are thinking that too. And if you all want to make that change, then like just, you know, just push for it, and it's okay.
Thank you, Grace. All right. Is there anything anybody else would like to add? If not, we're gonna go to our break. So we're gonna have a 5-minute break and reconvene at like 12, let's just say 12:15. And this can be, y'all can go get a snack or just stretch. But like what I had in mind, I was like, you mean dance break? Even okay, I know I wrote the slide, but dance break? So if you want to stay, we can have a little dance break for a bit.
You
But if not,
collection, Amy?
huh?
I brought all my hats because you were wearing your hat. I got this hat. Got this hat. I got this hat. I got this hat. I got this hat.
I said stand up. Everybody, stand up.
Hat for you.
We out here.
I have this hat.
I feel like
Those are my hats.
all right.
Here's a tour of my apartment. Here's all my Polaroid photos. Here's a tapestry that says shit could be worse, because normally it can be. I don't know if it can get worse than right now, but I don't know. We'll see. No one asked, but here it is.
All right, your turn, Victor. Or Grace, your turn. Tell the show.
Ooh, music. Ooh, go Amy.
뭔가 문제야 say something 분위기가 겁나 싸해 요새 이런 게 유행인가 왜들 그리 재미없어 아직도 나도 마찬가지 Tell me what I got to do 급한 대로 블루투스 켜 아무 노래나 일단 틀어 아무거나 신나는 걸로
Why is no one
아무도
dancing?
그냥 춤춰
Is this kind of dance for you?
아무 생각하기 싫어
Lyndon, where are you?
Amy, do the worm.
I'm not on the ground. Look
Yeah,
at
do the worm.
Why is no one dancing with Clara? I know you're standing up.
뭐가 문제야 say something 분위기가 겁나 싸해 요새 이런 게 유행인가 왜들 그리 재미없어 그건 나도 마찬가지 Tell me what I got to do 그 반대로 불꽃 켜
Me dance?
아무거나 신나는 걸로 아무렇게나 춤춰 아무렇지 않아 보이게 아무 생각하기 싫어 아무 얘기도 안 해 잠시 I'm sick and tired of my everyday
Does Amy, like, you know, like how the Super Bowl has like a halftime show? Is that what Amy's doing right now?
What?
Are you know how like the Super Bowl has like the halftime show, right? That's you right now.
We
This
got
is the
talent show.
intermission.
So we have some talent show time for y'all if y'all want it. Okay, now Kathy, you can read a poem for us. Oh, this is
Roses are red, violets are blue.
I just noticed that I'm still recording, which means this is gonna be in the recording.
You can edit it.
You're right.
You have to edit out the part right now.
All right, Clara, you can dab. You should dab then. Ain't no problem.
Well, did you?
Great. Any song requests? So next up, we're gonna have our audience question and answer. So anybody in the audience who wants to ask a question, you could drop a question in the chat room, or you can just unmute your mic and ask our panelists or me. All right. Oops, sorry.
Ask your question, Hamilton.
Okay, CJ Loong 2, what is your question? Would you like to type it or talk it? Should I have some like background elevator music type thing going on?
Why don't you just sing, Amy?
Oh boy. Favorite dining hall.
B-plate. Always B-plate.
B-plate! So B-plate has a
Always.
bad set. They're like, oh, it's just like chicken breast and like healthy food. But no, they use seasonal ingredients and they make them in such a chef's kiss away. I didn't know Brussels sprouts could taste like that.
They also have these vegan brownies that are freaking amazing, and like they tell you not to steal stuff from the dining halls, but they don't stop you from wearing like hoodies with that really big center pocket either. So just napkin and just save them for the whole week.
I like feast. Just because it kind of reminds me of just like Asian food. without leaving campus. But also Teneb. Teneb has pretty good fried chicken, honestly. Yeah, Teneb's pretty good.
What are these legends that you've heard? What do you mean? Unfortunately, since we can't invite you on campus, you can't try it for yourself.
I know.
It's a
I
little
wish y'all
sad.
could be here.
Dude,
But we
UCLA
can
dining
take
is.
it.
Oh, sorry.
Have no complaints.
UCLA dining is actually so good. It is ridiculous. I go there and I bring Tupperware and I take some home.
I can verify. I've run into Hamilton at the dining halls and literally see him with his Tupperware.
Look at all these questions flooding in.
Okay, living in an apartment versus living in the dorms. So as an RA, like literally working for university housing, I would definitely recommend living in the dorms your first year. I'm pretty sure they force you unless you tell them like you have financial reasons for not living there. It's a really good way to meet people, and the classics, which you'll see like if you choose to go to UCLA, there's a bunch of different options, and some just have more people and are more lively. So living in the dorms is nice because you get your community like already built in. That's not like something that you have to go find, and you also get to have the dining like right next to you. But I'd say when you get older, probably around your third year, living in the apartments is nice because you get more freedom. And we all know you're going to party anyway, so you should just do it and not have to worry about an RA having to come knock on your door anyway. I ended up living in the university apartments my last year and really enjoyed having the space.
One really big differentiation between living in the dorms and in the apartments for me is when you're in the dorms, you're like surrounded by people living their life. And so if you like sleep in on a Saturday until like 12, you're gonna wake up and there are gonna be people that have like gone about their day and they're like, yeah, I just went to the business stand like 10 miles and now I'm back here. And you're gonna feel like you're not doing enough because you have no privacy and like your life just bleeds into everything else. And like personally for me, I was like constantly just like aware of like everyone else's energy. And like I didn't really care, but it was just there. And I really enjoy living in my apartment because it's like my own space crafted to make me feel comfortable. And like it's not only like having the privacy, but like just like existing in my own realm and not having to worry about, not worry, but like I'm just doing my own thing. You know what I mean? If I wake up at like 1 o'clock, like who cares? It doesn't matter. There's no one to like low key shame me or anything. But that was like a really big differentiation for me. And yeah, that's all.
Yeah. I personally moved out after my first year because I just am not extroverted enough to live in the dorm. Like I lived in a classic dorm. I lived in Dykstra on a LLC, which I saw somebody ask about. And it's just like, I don't want to talk to people at 7 a.m., you know, or like 8 a.m. for that matter. And also like the thing is, everything is communal. So if one person gets sick, like half the floor gets sick. And then eventually everyone gets sick. So it's a whole thing. And there's a lot of communal things you have to deal with. So I mean, it really depends on which dorm you're put into. Like, and then that would determine what you'd have to deal with. But it is really fun to like connect with people and make new friends. And I'm an out-of-state student, so I didn't have any friends coming into UCLA. Like I knew some people from SEA Admit, but I didn't have any people from high school come in. So it was a good way to meet people. And I still like talk to some of them. I don't talk to all of them, but there's still some people that I talk to today. Let's answer the dorm questions first. How hard is it to get housing during your fourth year? I don't think any of us live in it, but Clara, can you answer?
I do. It is difficult because it's lottery system. It depends on how good you feel staying in the lottery as long as you want. But basically, you get guaranteed housing through 3 years, which is amazing. I don't know of any other university that guarantees on-campus housing for that long. but in your 4th year, you can stay in the lottery for as long as you want. But I'd say a lot of people enjoy the stability of knowing where they're going to be, so they don't stay in the lottery. If you work for residential life or housing or the front desk, you automatically get housing and you get priority housing. So that could be why you want to work for them. And since I've been an RA for 3 years, I didn't pay for housing for 3 of the years, which has been an awesome money saver. And I get to live in this 1-bedroom apartment by myself. So that shouldn't be the reason you become an RA, but it could be one of the reasons.
Nice. Okay, does anyone on the panel have experience in a LLC, and how was your experience? I don't know if any of you have.
So fun fact,
Grace and I lived on the same floor.
lived on the same floor our first year. The Global Health LLC, I stayed on the same floor my second year, and it was drastically different just because like the people were so different, the vibes were really different. But I really enjoyed it because like the whole floor was pretty much pre-med, being the global health floor, and so everyone like as a first year especially were in the same classes, and so in the lounge everyone would like kind of have like study sessions together, and like do homework together, study together, and it was just really nice connecting with the people in your classes who also like live on your floor. It was a really good way to just like make connections that way, and so I really did enjoy it.
Which dorm is better, Classic or Plaza for first year?
I like Classic, just because that's how you, like, I don't know, I met a ton of people just because it's so confined and condensed, and like I learned that I didn't really need to use that much space anyways, because I was not in my dorm as much.
Even if you're in a plaza, I lived in a plaza for both of my years on the Hill. You're still going to meet people. There's still going to be social interaction. And like what's cool about being in plazas is that everyone that comes out to events and to the lounges are there because like they want to make friends, versus in the Classics, you're like forced to like run into each other and have small talk. But I personally am very like introverted, contrary to popular belief. And I never met anyone on my floor because I never wanted to talk to them. So I would make a beeline from my elevator to my room, and I never had to interact with anyone. And I love that. But people that wanted to interact with each other would like be like chilling in the lounge.
Okay, let's move away from housing questions. Okay. Since UCLA is a very busy school, what are some ways you get away from the chaos to recharge?
I go out to eat when I'm not in quarantine. I'm trying to be a Yelper where I leave all the reviews on Yelp, but that hasn't been successful yet. K-Town is a favorite. Uber can get expensive, but make some friends with upperclassmen that have cars and go on trips with them, because it's really nice to get off UCLA campus.
The metro is a straight beeline down to the K-Town. So for $1, you can travel all those 7 miles, and it takes like a little longer, 40 minutes. But if you're an Uber pool, it'd be the same price anyways. And for me, picnics, because they're cheap and effective and can go anywhere. And I always carry, if you know me, I always have a little blanket in my backpack. So whenever I'm in the mood, I'll just like lay it out on the grass, jam steps, and have a picnic.
Yeah, we have a botanical gardens, and that's just like basically a large area that you can like walk through, and it feels like you're actually like in kind of like a forest area, and there's like a bunch of bamboo and a bunch of like exotic plants. I always like to go there after like a long day of class and then just sit down and then watch the turtles go down in the river, like their makeshift river that they have there. That's a really cool way to stay away from the busy parts.
Yeah, for me, like definitely like, I don't know, being social, just like, I don't know, it sounds crazy, but like getting away from the mess on campus is like, and for me to enter like the social mess, that's like my other side of my life. I think like definitely just like spending the time with people, you know, and just like really, you know, chilling and just like, hanging out is really fun. I know like on the Hill, Res Life, we hold like tons of programs throughout, like, you know, whether it's like your floor or like your building, and it's really cool. Like I like part of a running club that was put together by some people on the Hill, in the dorms, and I've been doing that for the past 4 years. So it's been fun just to like do that as like a nice way to like, you know, stay healthy and exercise. And it's like funny because it's just like a commitment I do, but it's just something fun. And I think like, yeah, definitely like exploring Los Angeles, like you really like, you're in a really nice location in terms of like just being in Los Angeles, and it's such a global city. So like if you have the time, really take the time to explore and get outside of the Westwood bubble, because that could be really boring sometimes. So, you know, just being out there and seeing what, you know, the city has to offer is really fun way just to like, you know, chill out.
Yeah. How do you balance studies with extracurriculars? What does a day in your life look like?
For me, I think at least for like my upper division classes, they're a lot less work than like I would expect. So I would probably just like grind out all of my work like through the weekend, and then maybe like 1 or 2 hours a day, and then the rest of the time like I would be doing like extracurriculars. And then once it comes time for like a midterm or something, then I'll actually like focus a lot more time on studying. But that one is like definitely each person has their own their own like amount that they need to study for classes. So yeah.
I put this in the chat, but you need to befriend a calendar or a planner. Like Google Calendar is probably the most used tab on my computer, because, and people make jokes about this, like I just have like blocks of things like all day, every day. But I would say that, like I said before, the thing that you have to plan into your day is sleeping. Like you can accomplish things a lot better and a lot more quickly if you actually sleep. And then also learn which classes require you to pay active attention and which classes will allow you to do work during them, because that is how I save time. Don't quote me on that, but it was how I was able to do 2 majors and the extracurriculars that I do. And a lot of us learned how to like answer emails and stuff during class. So maybe that's a quick tip on time saving. And then try to do things that help you socialize and do well in class at the same time. So like going to the gym, like you have to work out, so maybe do it with some friends, and study in groups and stuff like that. So you can kind of do 2 birds with 1 stone.
It is 12:32 right now, so if anybody needs to leave, feel free to leave. And if you want to stay on, stay on. We can answer some questions for you.
I just want to add also that. Oh yeah, sorry. Balancing extracurriculars and schoolwork. This isn't necessarily extracurricular, but in terms of like working, there are a lot of like work study or like student jobs that like you can get away with studying on the job and getting paid for it. I worked at a coffee shop, and like when it wasn't busy, I would like pull out my notes and just study and like just do my reading, especially because like we had like late hours and early morning, so it would be like 11 o'clock and no one would be there, so I'd just be studying for my next class.
Yes, I too.
Go off. Oh, sorry, Amy. But yeah, just to go off what Kathy said too, it's really important to make like the most of your time. So yeah, so I work like 2 jobs, and people always ask me like, well, how do you make time for everything? But there's not always like things happening all the time on the job. And so if you can like do homework or like do some readings or like just make use of the time that you're not doing much, that really cuts down on like the homework and like all the other things you have to do outside or like when you go home. Yeah, so just make use of your time doing things like that.
Anybody know about Phi-Sci major? What are your thoughts on it? And Lyndon said we can answer major specific questions. I'm not good at Phi-Sci, so ask Lyndon. Okay. I don't know if you answered this.
Why and how did you choose UCLA?
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
one.
why and how did you choose UCLA?
I think a lot of us will say SEA Admit was a big determining factor, but I would say things to look out for me was like finances and proximity to home. I was really grateful to be able to go home when I wanted to and not have to spend a lot of money on that, but at the same time, like just seeing the opportunities where you could thrive for your future. Like I never think it's too early to think about your future. And for me, and this kind of goes off Grace's question about being pre-med at UCLA, like there was a lot of opportunities that I don't think I would have gotten anywhere else, like some of the shadowing, some of the volunteering. And I think that was just being in a big urban city, being at a research institution, and being pre-med at UCLA is actually like the biggest and most popular place to be pre-med in the country. So there's definitely people that knew what was going on. And I think that was like a big factor in wanting to go there for my future as well.
UCLA made me feel like I could be anyone I wanted to. It made me feel powerful and it made me feel at home. And I think like SEA Admit was a really big part of that because that was like my introduction to it. But I think like a really big factor for me as well is I wanted to live in Los Angeles. I wanted to live in the city. I wanted to like, there are like events happening at any given time on any day, like not only like on UCLA campus, like free events, but one thing that I really enjoy is there's the Hammer Museum in Westwood, and they have talks every Wednesday or concerts where they'll like bring in like a professional in their field. So I've gone to talks on urban planning, on like AI, storytelling, all these different things. And that's so cool that it's like it's a minute walk away and I can just do that. But you don't really get that outside of like the city setting, as well as just like all of the culture of Los Angeles. So one thing that I've like told myself throughout this time is that like if I'm gonna live here, I'm gonna live in the city and I'm gonna enjoy it to its fullest. So I chose UCLA for the LA portion of it as well.
Can I add on, Amy?
Go for it.
For me, I really liked the people at UCLA. I visited a lot of schools, and there were some schools that felt like everyone just kind of hated it there. There were other schools where everyone just seemed like stuck up and spoiled. And there are other schools where I just didn't feel like I fit in. But I feel like UCLA has like the most genuine people that I've never met, like so many genuine people with such diverse backgrounds. And like a lot of them are on this, I mean, all these people on the panel are really great people too. So SEA Admit showed me like that UCLA was the best because of all the people. And also shout out to Hamilton because I wouldn't have gone to SEA Admit if not for him.
Oh, thanks. I chose UCLA because, like Lyndon said, like the people just coming to UCLA, I noticed that people are proud to be here, and they want to be here. Whereas like when I visited other schools, like they didn't have that school spirit where they're like, oh yeah, like UCLA is great. Like I'm so glad I'm a Bruin. Like blah blah blah. Like, and it's like you can't really go wrong. And I feel like UCLA is like one of the schools that has a really really good balance with social clubs and academics, rather than just being focused on one or the other.
For me, like, I don't know, it's gonna sound weird, but like, I feel like for me, like, the number one thing was just like, it's pretty campus. And like, I wanted to be somewhere that was beautiful. I don't know. It's just like, for me, like, I just like walking around and running around campus and being like, wow, it's just amazing and magical. But, you know, that was my part of it. And it's just really nice. And I don't know, the energy and the people definitely like, it's just attracted me. And the fact that, I don't know, I feel like it was fun to finally hear like an institution of higher education to, you know, like advertise or just really promote like diversity. And I guess the fact that they were really, you know, is UCLA for all, quote, quote, in a way. And it's just like, yeah, like I felt like, you know, this would give me like they offer so many opportunities. And so like I didn't have a clear idea of what I wanted to study, but like I knew that like it was like there was a lot to offer me at UCLA, and it was a place where I could explore and just experiment, even though I didn't know like exactly what I wanted for my career path. For now, like I think like today, like I would say like, yeah, like UCLA, like especially like as Kathy said, like the positionality in Los Angeles and as a global city, like in my world and my field of like research and everything, I've been very fortunate to like just be able to like do tons of field research and everything around the city and just that kind of stuff. So it's really just like up to you, and I guess like what you want to get out of it. So like I would encourage anyone to, if you're trying to decide on schools, just to really like, you know, like do some research in school and just like try to like see what like, you know, the academics are and what like, you know, like clubs or organizations that they can offer, but, you know, just really see like if you can see yourself there, and just know that, you know, like I think like I think that any of us could have been successful anywhere, but it's just like, but we have particular things that we're attracted to at UCLA that really like made us, you know, who we are today. So I think like just take the time to explore, but I don't know, it's just fun. I love campus. I'm always like, yeah, it's like UCLA everywhere. So yeah.
I think a lot of what you all said has to do with like, yes, like innately we have the potential for success, but what is going to inspire us to reach that success? So if you can find something here that inspires you to go for it, then I think it's the right school for you. So whatever really inspires you and motivates you. Does anybody want to answer, how is being pre-med like in UCLA? Do you feel supported?
There is definitely like, I don't want to boil everyone down to two categories of people, but let's just do it for summaries. There is like that pre-med that reminds you of that person in school that you never really liked because they were a kiss ass and they like tried super hard, and you were like, okay, calm down, like it's fine, like they did everything to get into college and whatnot. And that's the same for pre-meds, because it's everyone that's like, hello, I'm just trying to get into med school. It seems like they don't care. But that kind of shadows the people who actually really want to help you succeed, because you can't be pre-med without other pre-med buds that understand the struggle. So I feel supported by a lot of my colleagues. Some of them are on this panel too, that like help me feel like it's okay, we're all in this together. And that also goes back to like being Southeast Asian. It's a lot different than being East Asian and pre-med and things like that. But medical schools don't actually see that too. They like kind of put us all in the same boat. So you have to work even harder with your friends and community to show that you're going to make medicine better and whatnot. But in terms of getting involved, like there's a lot of different ways to get involved that doesn't have to just be the really competitive pre-med orgs too. You can volunteer, you can really be part of anything that you think makes you a better person. Like bottom line, because now applying to med school, like that I'm doing like literally right after this, you get to talk about whatever the heck you want. It doesn't have to be in the hospital. It doesn't have to necessarily be what you think med schools want. So I think just choosing something meaningful, and that has made being pre-med at UCLA like manageable, I guess. But you just have to make sure you don't fall into that culture of like toxicity. But Amy and Grace are also pre-med, maybe Lyndon.
So Lyndon. I'm like a really bad pre-med though. Like, don't ask me for advice.
I think one of the most important things that I didn't realize until like going to college is that it's not so much like your major that defines if you go to med school or not. Because there's a lot of people coming into college who are like, oh, I'm gonna be biochem because like that's gonna give you the best shot of medical school, and it's not. So there's a lot of people who are in like wildly different majors like English or sociology or music, and sometime down the line they're like, hey, I want to go to med school, you know. And so don't worry too much. Like if you don't care about like math too much, or like you feel like you're not good at math or like chemistry or something like that, don't feel like discouraged, or like don't feel like you have to force yourself into those majors. And then also don't feel discouraged to not go to med school. Yeah, because a lot of my friends first year, they switched their majors away from like the more STEMmy majors just because they found that that wasn't for them, but they do still like see themselves going into like the field of medicine sometime in their future. And so don't feel like your major is going to define whether or not you get into med school.
Lynn, do you want to add anything?
Me?
Yeah.
I would just say to even, and this goes for any like career path, not just pre-med, don't like try to hoop jump because UCLA has so much stuff to offer. There's no like right path. And even if you see someone else doing certain things, it doesn't mean you have to copy them or like that you're not doing enough. Do what you like, because at the end of your college career, you want to look back and feel like you've done what you wanted to do and you've done well in things that you're passionate about. And so if you find that you're trying to do something because you think it's right, but you don't like it, don't waste your time in it, because it's not really gonna benefit you.
Yeah, so people might come here and think that, oh, these are some boxes that I need to check to get to where I want to be. But if those boxes don't mean anything to you, they're not going to mean anything in the future. And like to the people you're trying to like impress, it's not going to mean anything. And people can tell when you're not genuine and when you don't care about the things that you're doing. So I feel like it's more important to do things that you love than to do things that you think you need to do. Yeah. Okay, it looks like we don't have any more questions. So at this time, I just want to ask the panelists if you want to leave any last thoughts for any of the students and anything else that you want to say that you haven't been able to say.
Last thoughts, I said this, but I really just want to drill this in. Wherever you go, you belong there and they're lucky to have you. You have to remember that they are lucky to have you and it's not the other way around. Whether it's like, I think oftentimes I found myself like interviewing for jobs and organizations and I was like, I really hope I impress them. But it's like, no, they gotta impress me too. It's like, I'm not feeling that. Like, they don't deserve me. And I had like remembering that, it will get you to places where you'll thrive. Because if you're in an environment where like you don't really enjoy it, you're not gonna thrive. They're lucky to have you. Remember that. You belong there. That's all. Peace out.
The same goes for relationships too, okay? Men ain't shit. No, but seriously, just be careful, practice safe things, and, you know, explore your options. And as long as you're being safe and okay, I'm gonna stop. But yeah, you deserve love too. All the things that Kathy says applies to relationships. Sorry, that was...
You deserve to be treated well. Hamilton, why do you look so sad?
I was reading an email.
Multitasking king. Y'all see what we're talking about? Make the most out of your time.
Okay. Well, if any, do you, okay, sure. Would you like to ask your fun question?
So like, how's like, what's your opinion on USC and like, how's the rivalry between USC and UCLA?
You know, my first year, I was always like, I don't understand why people hate USC. Like, that's like such an immature rivalry. But no, like it's, I don't know. I feel like once you get really like into UCLA, then it just like the inner, not hatred, but like dislike for people at USC or like just the school. The people are cool, but like the school just pops out. And then so like me personally, like I don't respect them in terms of like sports or like competition. But like other words, like I respect the people. Like the people are really cool. I've met a lot of them, but yeah, if that answers the question.
It's like a fun rivalry thing. I don't think we actually hate each other. It's just like part of the culture.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I feel like it's definitely just more sports related in terms of like academics or things like that. There's a lot of collaborations between UCLA and USC. And so I feel that a lot of things like in terms of academics, works well together. It's just like around football season and stuff like that, where you see a lot of rivalry, where like some UCLA students will go to USC's campus and kind of like, I don't know, put graffiti on their mascot, or like people from USC will come and like kind of mess up the Bruin Bear statue. But it's just like, I guess, like a fun rivalry that's also kind of illegal because you're doing things on public property. But yeah, in like everyday life, it's not that big of a deal. Like, people don't really hate USC here at UCLA.
But we definitely like to like make memes out of them. Okay, any other question? Going once, going twice. All right, so that concludes our 2020 SEA Admit student panel. And I just want to thank all of our panelists for taking the time out of their day to join us for this event and giving all these insightful thoughts for our students. I just want to applaud them real quick. Everybody, user reacts. Applaud them. Applaud. Or you can. And I, from the bottom of my heart, I really do like appreciate all of you, and I do really admire all of you and the things that you've done at UCLA so far. So I'm really glad that I was able to know you all for all 4 years. Like some of you I like got to know more recently than in the past, but these are people who I've worked alongside since freshman year, and I can see over these years that they've really impacted their community and the people around them. And I also want to thank all of you admits for coming to this panel so that we can really learn more, and just so that we can give back to you as well. Like, even though that this situation isn't the most ideal for anybody, like nothing's ideal about a pandemic, like we still want to be here for you, and we want to show you that we care and that UCLA cares, even though there's so many things going on. But we, at this time, we do feel that our community needs us even more than ever. So all of us staff at SEA Admit and our student panelists have been working to provide the support for you, and also your mentors, and they should have reached out to you by now if you did sign up. And just thank you for letting us be here for you as well. And just so you all know, we will be posting this video on our website for everyone to see. I'll edit stuff out I'll just edit a couple things out, but it should mostly still be there. Maybe I'll bleep some people, maybe I won't, but free speech. We will also be having another workshop at 1, and I know you all had a lot of questions about dorms, so they will be answering questions about that, and they'll talk to you more about the logistics of it. And also, you can check out our website to see any things that you have missed, any events that you have missed. We've recorded all of these events, so you can go to past workshops and stuff. And you can also kind of look through other things on the events tab that we didn't have events for, like tour or entertainment. So they have information about other groups. And tour, you can learn more about our campus as well. And I think that's it for logistical things. So I hope you all remain healthy and safe, and hopefully we can see some of your faces here. Maybe not all of us because we're graduating, but definitely a lot of people from the SEA community will still be here to welcome you. So I just want to thank you again for coming, and I hope you have a great time.